So hi everybody, thanks for coming back. Like Darvin said, my name is April Pisek. I'm an associate director and the product owner for IDBS Polar at IQVIA Labs. And I'm going to talk about the integrations that we have and how we seamlessly connect our processes, people, and our platforms. So just a little bit about my history, just because I've been using the product for 16 years. But I have 21 years of experience within the bioanalytical CRO industry. If you've known me for a long time, I originally started at AIT Bioscience, and then after a couple of acquisitions, became a part of IQVIA Labs. Sorry about that. I started out actually in quality control, and then I moved to the lab, operated mass specs, and then I became the official IDBS ELN and Watson admin. So that's how I transitioned from the lab into software. My background is mainly small molecule LC-MS, and then from the application side, since I was at a small company, I basically did everything. So definitely learned a lot of the processes that we now do at IQVIA. I learned from doing a lot of them back at AIT in a small company. So anywhere from administration, configuration, validation, and building hundreds of spreadsheets at this point. I also spent about 2 years at IDBS, and so that's kind of why it's so nice to see everybody again. And for right now, for about 4 years now, I've been the product owner for IDBS Polar across AIT, which then became Nexalis and now IQVIA Labs. So what I do on a daily basis is really helping drive our enterprise alignment with the template creation, the design, as well as the data model behind it, and how we're going to eventually align that with IQVIA Labs' business goals, right? So another thing that we're doing is that I'm doing on a daily basis is really trying to understand those user requirements and passing them along to the ELN team, which is about 6 people. Again, they do lots of different things, but they're building a lot of templates. So we're probably at the end of this year, we're looking to have around 85 templates that cover every single, like I mentioned earlier, process, Excel file, anything that we can do to completely get off paper. Let's see. And yeah, while we're doing that, we're establishing our master data. And the other thing that you'll hear throughout the presentation is that it's not just the data in IDBS Polar, but it's how is that data also aligning with all the other systems and platforms for our large IQVIA Labs master data model. So IQVIA Labs, like Jen mentioned, so we're a global leader in drug discovery and development laboratory services. And so we have a comprehensive suite of both central labs and specialty lab services. And we actually have in our biosciences department 5 different labs around the world. So our Ithaca lab in New York does both small molecule LC-MS and large molecule LC-MS. And we have 2 Indianapolis labs. So we have a regulated bioanalysis lab that does both LC-MS and immunogenicity. And then we have a discovery lab. So I talked about using our GXP platform for discovery as well. And then our RTP lab is mainly large molecule. And then we also are onboarding our Beijing lab, and they do both LC-MS and ADA. So we've got the gamut of labs that can do multiple services or just LC-MS. So I'll touch a little bit more and go into why IQVIA Labs and why we want to use IDBS Polar so we can standardize our data collection, right? That helps us make sure that it doesn't matter what laboratory site for our customers, doesn't matter what lab site they're working with. When all sites have harmonized and use the same template design, all that data is being structured in the same way. So we can align with our agile lab strategy, which along with our maintenance event process helps us continuously get templates up to date, even if we do have to add new fields to publish data, so we can query more valuable insights for them. This also obviously helps us get set up for metrics so that we can pull through Power BI. And of course, the goal is to be able to send that data to an AI tool to learn insights on our operations and things that we're doing internally. It obviously enhances our data integrity. We have real-time edit checks to ensure that the data going in that's being captured in every single experiment is going to be valid, so we can trust that data coming out. We're streamlining our compliance and operations. So with being able to program your business logic in a template, it essentially incorporates what our standard operating procedures tell our end users to do. So that really helps us follow our SOPs, reducing deviations and QC findings and QA findings. We're able to automate and integrate. So I'll talk about how we integrate with lab equipment like balances, and of course, any other systems like Watson LIMS. Because again, what we're trying to do is eliminate any place that the scientist in the lab would be able to make a typo or a mistake. And of course, that improves their efficiency too, if they don't have to stop their process, export something from one database and import it into IDBS. And of course, then at the end, our clients, what we're trying to do is get data out faster to them, get them the report faster. So all of that really helps really shrink down the end of study time so that they can get their data faster and of course then file faster to get those drugs out. So I mentioned we have 5 different labs and over about 350 users. Okay, so why are we using integrations? Lots of reasons, as you can see, but one of the first reasons is that we're enhancing our sample traceability when we integrate with our LIMS, which is Watson. And what we're able to do actually in the sample accessioning process, we can pull in the study design. And then when sample management goes to accession the samples, number one, we don't have to over-label that tube with a unique barcode. It's the barcode that was sent to us that's already on the tube. And so now we're able to essentially in ELN document the whole accessioning process, document discrepancies that are found in real time, and all that just because we connected to Watson. They don't have to open Watson to do this process. It's the simple data link, which I will get into, but it really helps connect the data from Watson and ELN. And if we find something about that sample needs to change, or we want to import more data about that sample, we can then export a file from the accessioning experiment and actually import it into Watson. So it really is a full circle of being able to get all of the comments and notes about that sample either in Watson, and the documentation is there in ELN. Another reason why we're using integrations is to align with the ICH M10 guidance. Definitely from the data reporting side, there are some standards that we're following. So if we can design a template to report the data exactly in the format we're supposed to, it makes it so much easier for our medical writing team to just take the data straight from ELN and then put it in the final report. This is definitely a tricky one, global lab alignment. So again, from our customer's perspective, they want to basically engage with any site and they get the same type of data out, right? They don't want to get 10 different report formats. So this is actually really huge for IQVIA specialty labs. And the other thing I wanted to mention is harmonization. Even though we're doing ADA in Indianapolis and RTP, it's really forced our sites to actually harmonize and think about what they've been doing in the past, think about new guidance that's coming out, and then we build in the template their best process or the decisions that they've made to harmonize. So they might not like it because then someone's got to change, but it really does help keep the number of templates also down and minimize that. So we have one method template for all sites, one reagent prep. We don't have site-specific templates. And I think anyone who builds templates, that's the goal. Operational efficiency. So yeah, if we can click a button and pull data from Watson or click a print button on the balance and that data goes straight in the spreadsheet, that just helps them be more efficient as they're collecting their data in the lab. We've been talking about data integrity all day, but essentially if we get everybody to use all of the templates, and we know the data going into their experiments is higher quality, then for our customers, the data coming out will be of higher quality. And that's, of course, something that they want. Centralized archiving. So it's kind of strange. We talk about using softwares in ELN and analytics and AI, but it's so neat to actually de-archive a study, and it takes 10 seconds. So it's so helpful when we're doing client audits. We really are able to de-archive studies, and they can see exactly what they need, in such a short amount of time. You don't have to wait for a box of paper to be retrieved days later, then look at the data. And of course, we're doing all of this really so that we can begin extracting data from the system so that we can learn insights about our operations, things that aren't obvious to the day-to-day. It'll help us trend and learn how to change the processes even that we've developed to continuously improve. So out-of-the-box integrations. I don't know, is anybody else using instrument reader or label printing? Yes, great, a few people. I love instrument reader. It's kind of funny because it always gives you the toaster pop-up that says, I got your weight, But that's a really nice indicator for the end user as they're weighing out their compounds, weighing out reagents, and I don't know if anybody has looked into the audit trail for instrument reader, but when we validated it, it's so neat. It really is very descriptive, and any auditor looking in that audit trail will know exactly that the user didn't type that in. It was received from this balance on this date and time, from this IP address and this port. So the audit trail around instrument reader is very good. And of course, you don't have to manually type in a number, which is also really nice. Our other labs that were on paper would have to print that weight out, tear it off, attach it to their ELN experiment before we implemented this. So it's been really great. Label printing, we don't want anyone to type anything, right? No typing values from a balance, and no typing in your MA number, your EQ number, because you always forget 10 at least. So I don't know if you've done that, but we actually have site-specific labels. Now that doesn't necessarily seem the best. However, we have found that some sites want a little bit more information, and some sites are okay with the out-of-the-box label that we give. So it just makes it so much easier if you think about when you're in the lab and you're executing sample prep or you're making a reagent. You don't even have to type anything. You're just scanning and working through the spreadsheet. So it's definitely faster than having to write all that down on paper. So using instrument reader and label printing, we're enabling precision and compliance in our workflows, ensures sample traceability, supports our regulatory compliance, obviously reduces the manual errors, creates more efficiency, and facilitates those integrations with those lab instruments. Okay, so now I'd like to talk about the IQVIA Labs integrations. We have a lot of them. So the first one is called the database pulling app. Anybody use the DPA? Shendy does. So if you don't know what the DPA does, I highly recommend that you use it. If you're using a LIMS system or some other system that you want to essentially automatically create studies in ELN. So I don't know if you're an administrator and you have to build those studies, or if you give users permission. And I don't know if you see inconsistency in that structure, but that's one of the reasons why we want to sync with the LIMS system. So the DPA, the way it works is it sits between Watson LIMS and ELN, or IDBS Polar. It's very hard to change after you said that for a very long time. So then every single time a brand new project's created in Watson, a new study or a run, a set of folders gets created in IDBS Polar, like in the Navigator, which at that moment, now our users can go in and begin any documentation that they need on that study. But one thing is it also adds the permissions. So it's really literally significant reduce in admin burden. Nobody has to do anything. It's just automatically there. Data links. So DPA syncs with Watson, so does data links, but data links also can sync to any other database you want. And I'm actually working on a data link to our project management tool called PlanView right now, which I'll talk about in another slide. So it's really great because, again, you don't want end users to have to export data from a separate database and import that. So this is your secure and direct database access. It's a SQL query, and there's actually a great wizard in the spreadsheet designer that walks you through how to set it up. And when you set it up, you do have to enter like the database credentials, but you can save it so end users don't have to type it in. So really, from their side, all they have to do is click a button. It's awesome. So we're eliminating the copy and paste errors. And okay, so providing data in a single view for easier evaluation. This is a great example of our sample prep template. So for example, if you can imagine, some labs have laptops at the bench, some labs have big monitors. But when you're aliquoting a plate, you need to look at your Watson work list and you need to be able to read the procedure. So they don't need to open Watson now. They're just looking at IDBS Polar. They have their work list on one side and the procedure. So if you have to add reagents during your aliquoting process, it really helps them just see everything that they need right at the time of the bench that they're doing that work. This is also helpful for like scientific review. So we do also data link into some templates, so we'll bring in raw data. And that way folks can sort of review the internal standard plot as well as look at the samples from that work list and the peak area for every single sample so they can start aligning their data as they review it to find any outliers. So again, it just really helps the users just have to look at one place. The one thing I wanted to mention is we data link a lot of information from Watson. We have about 20 templates that actually pull data in, but they complement what Watson does. We do not replicate anything that Watson does because we just don't want to bring into any question of like, well, which data did you pick? So if there's any recommendation, that's something I would recommend, that if you're going to start pulling in data from another database, don't do any additional calculations that software is doing. So for data analysis, I guess I could say we're integrating with our SOP acceptance criteria. So if you've ever looked at a run or a batch and you were determining per SOP how that batch, if it passed or failed, looking at the standards, are they dropped in the appropriate order, all of those things that a scientific reviewer would look at. We have a lot of templates that we've actually built in that acceptance criteria. So we'll pull lots of data from Watson through the data link, and then as they're performing their scientific assessment, for example, with our LCMS experiments, we will do a carryover assessment. So per our SOP, it's okay if you have carryover in a run, but if that carryover impacts the sample, so if you look at every single sample and if it impacts the sample previous, then that's the only sample that needs to be reanalyzed versus failing the whole run and having to reanalyze. So it's helped users hone in on the things that they really need to be looking at scientifically and not necessarily failing a run just because they know carryover failed. Some other things that we're doing with integrating our SOPs and our data analysis templates is selectivity. This is one of our LCMS validation experiments. And so we'll pull in the data, and then we've essentially programmed that acceptance criteria. If your peak response is over, I can't remember, 20% of the LLOQ, then your selectivity fails. So again, we're helping the scientists get to the conclusion of their experiment faster by programming the things that we already have in our SOPs in the first place. Process sample stability, that's a great example of, I just need a calculation. Watson's showing from the bias that these samples passed, but what was the day that these samples were extracted and what was the day they were injected, and do the simple math. So for process sample stability, that template, I mean, it only needs like the second injection from Watson, but again, it's just another way that we're getting to the answer faster by using the spreadsheet and a data link. I think I mentioned the internal standard plot. Now for ADA, we're not calculating cut point because that's a statistical analysis that we decided we're not building in our Polar spreadsheets. But what it at least does is we can pull the whole cut point study design worth of data from Watson and kind of like use a macro, make the spreadsheet act like a macro and format the data in the exact format we need to export and import into, and maybe one day integrate into a cut point analysis tool. So yeah, and we're doing your standard calculations, mean, standard deviation, CV, and percent inhibition. And again, we will flag those outliers for samples that exceed the percent inhibition. So just doing a lot of scientific assessment in the spreadsheet that align with our SOPs. Data tabling, so it's kind of something that maybe some people don't realize you can do, or maybe you have thought to do it. But we actually create data tables in our spreadsheets because, again, we already have the data there. We already brought it in to tell us if it passed or failed. We have then create the data table. So essentially what we've done, I kind of mentioned it earlier, we've tried to automate as much as we can up until we're ready to write our final bioanalytical report. So we have basically, I don't know, it's like 20 templates that cover LCMS validation, ADA validation, ADA sample analysis, tier analysis, and this other sample reconciliation. So what's that? I don't know if you have a LIMS system that you use or if you use Watson LIMS, but do you ever try to track reassays? Because that's not fun. So this is essentially what we've built. So we can query all of the samples that have been received in Watson, and we can compare that against the samples that have a result and tell the project manager what samples still need to be analyzed and if you don't have a result. So this has been very helpful because that's one of the most manual processes that I think Watson doesn't necessarily handle well, or at least how I've used Watson. The next integration to talk about is our method template. So essentially we have one experiment that you fill out every single method parameter. Again, I mentioned that method experiment, that method template covers LCMS, LBA, PK, and ADA. And then we have our templates that the lab executes. And all they have to do is type in their method number and run a query, and everything about how to prepare that reagent, stock solutions, standards, controls, sample prep, and how to set up your mass spec and what instruments to use, it's all provided to them right after they run that query. I mentioned earlier, we're harmonizing our master data. I have another slide, but these 5 applications, Salesforce, PlanView, Watson, IDBS, and PeopleSoft are all using one study ID. So our whole business relies on that one number now. And it doesn't matter what application you use, you can find that project or study in every single application. And so you can understand where we at with that study. And that's great because previously there were different parts of the business naming each study whatever they wanted. And it was very hard to invoice and make sure we got paid for what we were doing. So it's really helped everybody get on the same page and manage that side, the finance side. So, okay, study compilation tool. What's that? This is something we're building right now. And it's essentially, and I'm also interested on how some of these new things that IDBS is thinking about, maybe you have something there that we could use as well. But we get a lot of questions of like, I just want to know, is the study ready to, review, to audit, to write the report? But we don't want them to move forward with the report if the study hasn't been fully QC reviewed or audited or whatever, that process is today. And so the study compilation tool will be able to query every single experiment in that study. It will tell us if it's been reviewed by the experiment status. We'll be able to start trending pass-fail across the whole study so that we can understand, hey, what's going on? So you don't have to do this even at the end of the study. You could keep a running log, like create one experiment, run your query at, run 10. How is the assay performing today? How is the assay performing in a month? We do run a large clinical trial studies, so it's a neat tool to be able to, from a project management standpoint, if they don't understand how to use all the templates, that's okay, but they can at least see all of the runs that have been executed. Did they pass or fail? What reagents are we using? What matrix lots are we using? So they really begin to understand that full study performance. And then with that tool, how we're designing it is so that it is basically the place that our medical writing team will go to get the things that they need to put in the final bioanalytical report. So it's like, every lot number of reference material that our client would send us, or every lot of matrix used on the run, every piece of equipment used. So all these things is just a requirement that the FDA requires us to put in our BioA report. So we're trying to build tools that multiple teams can also use to help them understand what's going on with the study. And that's something hopefully we'll get the version 1 out this year. Yeah, so then hopefully we can export that and send it to some AI tool so we can learn more about our data. Okay, so 3 pillars of successful integrations. It needs to be reliable. It needs to align with our master data and analytics plan. And we hope that we're getting a return on investment for it, because we don't want to work on something and spend the time building it if it's really not going to bring us value. All right, so I mentioned the DPA. It's wonderful. It's like one of my favorite, I've been using that for a very long time. But the users now are very dependent on it. So we need to make sure that it's always on and it's being monitored. So over the years, we've learned we can't just let it go and, if there's a network restart that we're not told about, we have since actually deployed an automation that restarts the DPA service if it's accidentally turned off by something or it happens to stop working. We also have been monitoring its performance. So sometimes it takes 5 minutes to work and sometimes it takes 6 hours. So it's really helped us understand like, hey, we might need to look into the code, might need to optimize it. So because our users are depending on it. We really don't want them going in and manually creating a study because they're not going to name the folders right. And anything around analytics, when you start naming folders something different, it's not fun to have to go and clean up. Instrument reader configuration, it's pretty reliable, but we did have a lab that had to use paper, was still executing paper studies and ELN studies. And we found that sometimes when they removed the cord from the Lantronix device that's connected to the balance, which networks it, and plugged it back into their printer, the next person who came along was like, I don't know how to send my data to ELN. So they just went back to paper, and it was like, what's going on? So we just put a simple diagram connected to the cord so that they knew for ELN studies, this is how you set it up. For paper studies, this is how you set it up. But for the most part, very solid integration. And the spreadsheet edit checks. So I kind of chatted about this a little bit earlier. Most of our templates, if not all of them, have some sort of real-time edit checking, meaning I'm scanning in things, querying inventory, and it will tell me right then and there if it's expired, if it's the wrong thing, if it's not a qualified lot. So essentially what we've done, we rolled out a set of templates. We call them the method templates. So, that covers most of the lab processes. And we've received feedback like, well, I used this and the system didn't stop me. And we come back to, okay, that's a new user requirement. So we're just continuously adding more and more alerts as new use cases are identified. But I think from a reliability standpoint, our users are starting to become dependent on them. So we do want to make sure what they should not be doing is programmed in. All right, so like I mentioned earlier, this is our sort of master data flow for biosciences, not the rest of specialty labs, or at least not yet. So essentially, the integration between Salesforce and PlanView, that's automatic. So whenever our BD team is engaging with clients and a project or a proposal is signed, they will go to Salesforce and change the status of that quote. Then that's the trigger to automatically create the study in PlanView. So PlanView is our project management tool. So again, that's an integration that happens overnight, once a day. Now the integration between PlanView and Watson, we're actually working on that right now. So once a project manager knows a study is coming to them, it's assigned to them in PlanView, they can add a little bit more data about the study, and then they will flip a toggle that says integrate with LIMS, yes. So once they check that on, a study will automatically be created in Watson. Then they can go and create the study design, copy master assay, do a little bit more study setup activities in Watson. But once it's created in Watson, it automatically gets created in IDBS, Polar. And then that's kind of where that piece ends, the ELN. But to close the loop on the PlanView side, remember I said we're using the same study number across all these systems. So in PlanView, when the project manager reaches certain milestones of that study, then basically PeopleSoft is automatically triggered to invoice our clients. So again, all using that same study number. And then the instrument data, that's kind of one of our last pieces we're still working on to do essentially an automatic upload of all of our instrument data into Watson. So we have almost everything across this master data flow automated. And yeah, it's pretty exciting to actually get here after 3.5 years. All right, so on the right-hand side is our two main business systems, so IDBS Polar and Watson LIMS. You can't see the gray lines, but hopefully a little bit. So you can see all of our labs are all in the same system, which is great. And it took a long time to get here. But now, you know, I've gotten queries from our project management team to now connect our data from IDBS and Watson and do some scientific analytics in Power BI. And that's really neat. So that's going to be like a next year project. So essentially, we've been able to transition old paper processes into these systems so we can gain insights. We've definitely optimized our operations across all these sites, and we are able to have more remote employees because of this. We've been able to analyze some trends in our assays, and a client request we receive quite often that I hope we'll be able to answer, you know, quickly soon now that we're in Polar and we can access Data Studio, is to do a bit more reagent performance and trending for them. Because we do get a lot of critical reagents and compounds that are unique to our clients, and they want to know, how much do you have? How much have you used? When do we need to send more? What was the last lot we gave you? So that will be very helpful for them. And of course, I've mentioned we're really doing all of this to set us up to integrate with IQVIA Labs' clinical master data. We hope that this distinguishes us across the other CROs and that our customers will want to work with us because we're you know, thinking about them just like IDBS is thinking about their customers. And of course, hopefully we'll be able to use artificial intelligence once we can get all this data out. Yeah. Okay, so what's the return on investment? Have we gained anything? Last week, it was really great. We had our biosciences town hall, and we had about 6 people. I didn't speak at all, which is like wonderful. But 6 people really sharing their story now that they've been in the system for 1.5 years and 2 years, and what have they gained? We're trying to, you know, really foster that new data mindset at IQVIA Labs with just your end users. And sometimes that's not so easy when every day you're telling them to use a new template. But our sample management team shared that they were able to basically, so they went live with sample management in ELN February 1st, 2024. And so it's now September 2025. And they reduced their backlog from 1,000 to 200 shipments. And they basically said that they don't even get many QC findings these days because of all the mandatory fields we've programmed. They don't have any GDP corrections. So that was really huge. Our medical writing team said that they used to have to basically copy and paste from all of these paper documents that were scanned on the network. So what used to take them 2 hours basically takes them 2 minutes. They just have to create an experiment, run a query, and get all the study conclusions so that they can populate the bioanalytical report. But the thing that I didn't even know that they were doing is that most of the people, well, I knew they were remote, but essentially they had all these remote report writers, or some are on site. They had to contact one woman in the building who didn't work full time just to scan the paperwork to the network just so they could actually do that. So even all that waiting time is completely eliminated. Arlene from Ithaca. Okay, so we also have a deviation report. It's not something you would think we would put in ELN, but we do document our deviations in ELN right now. And now we're able to trend those deviation root causes. And it's a template that Jen built. And it has a lot of really great charts for everyone to really understand what are the gaps in our process, SOP, and even training. So yeah, someone had to manually collate that in Excel previously. So yeah, it's pretty much a one-click report. Another thing that our project management team mentioned is that they're happy they can finally go into inventory and see an accurate reflection of what we actually have physically in the building if they're not there. So we do automatic decrementing in all of our templates that people use materials. And what that does is it'll just, right, it automatically disposes something after it's done. So we're trying to keep inventory up to date for that. And another example was the sample discrepancy report. So a client came to sample management and said, you know, why haven't you analyzed these samples? And they're like, well, there are outstanding discrepancies. And the client said, well, what are they? Maybe we can help if the clinic's not, you know, replying. So they just ran this report and exported to Excel and sent it to the client. And it was just such a better way for clients to understand what their partner is actually having to deal with, you know, when you're working with all these different clinics. And, you know, they were able to help get their samples through faster if they helped answer the questions. So that was really great. So mentioned the study compilation report, something we're working on. It really will help everything, you know, everybody sees all of the data in ELN and they just want to know, is this study done? And so that's what we hope will provide them that answer. And we have the potential to save 660 hours or maybe more on just one study. And that's a big study, like a bioequivalence or bioavailability study. But all right, so what's next for IQVIA Labs on our integration journey, which Jim kind of asked me earlier. We're absolutely going to start taking advantage of the scientific analytics using Power BI. We do already do operational analytics. We have about 15 dashboards right now. But I think it's really getting into that spreadsheet data that we've had requests over the last couple years. So everybody was very excited to upgrade to Polar, at least from the leadership side. We're going to utilize our robust data model, again, to drive more of our metrics and make data-driven decisions. And we have plans to integrate with the wider IQVIA Labs digital footprint. One other thing that we're trying to automate, like I mentioned, is all of the validation tables that we designed in ELN and all of the data tables that you can get from Watson. But someone still has to manually copy and paste all that data and put it into a final report. So we're looking into tools to help us automate our report generation, as well as our method document. I don't know if some of the IDBS folks here know that I've been asking for that for a long time. So we're looking at an AI tool that hopefully will help us get both automation and BioWay reports and our method document that our clients want. And let's see, last point, utilize IQVIA Labs data model to take advantage of, we've got the AI tools, like I mentioned, IQVIA Labs, or IQVIA as a whole has been rolling out. And now that we have this structured data, we can see what we can learn from that. So, is that it? Yes, that's it. Oh, remember, the last thing I wanted to say is, even though you can build all these integrations, they take a long time to get going, but they're worth it. So if you ever have any questions on what is the pathway of the data being sent from the balance to the spreadsheet, I have the diagram, so let me know. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely lots of challenges, but they're worth it. And once the business uses them, they, like I mentioned, they just depend on them. And yeah, it's good. Anyway, thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, April. We do have a few minutes for questions, maybe one or two. Are there any questions for April? Oh, yes, at the back, Christina.
Thanks, April, for the presentation. I had a question about the integration that you have between Watson LIMS and ELN. If data is changed in Watson after it's been queried into an ELN spreadsheet, how do you guys manage that?
You have to go back into the experiment and rerun the data link. Yeah.
Is there a process for them to know that they need to do that, or how does that work, like if it might get missed?
That's a good question, and I almost feel like we haven't reached that challenge yet. But if someone's reviewing the data, as of right now, it's up to them to go tell, if they're not the one to go and change the experiment, they need to tell someone else to do it, because otherwise then it's the wrong data. So yeah, it's probably something we need to hash out with a bunch of our labs. We're just, let's see, sample accessioning. Actually, they do it. Sample management does it all the time. But they are also the ones, if they change Watson, they know to go in. So it's something that, in general, when you train people on these integrations, you tell them it's not automatic. You have to actually rerun the data link.
Thanks.
Yeah.
We have time for one more question.
So April, you mentioned about the study compilation and getting your list of equipment or materials that were used. How do you actually do that?
Jen's magic, remember? So it's actually going to be a combination of, we call it the inventory component report. So actually, I don't know if anybody uses the inventory aggregate report. You can execute that at the study level. That gives you the list of everything, but there's duplicates. So basically, we have our users go to that report, export it to Excel, and then copy all those IDs, the material IDs, and then paste them in this report that Jen built. Maybe you can speak to it better, but basically you run a query and then it tells you, wait a minute, there's more components. You just keep querying, and I think there's 7 queries.
Like a genealogy.
6, and then it'll tell you start at the beginning.
Okay, yeah,
Go
so,
through and query every component link, and it goes down, 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 and there's flags, and then eventually it'll say, okay, you've reached everything, you've queried as far down as you can go, and that way you know if you made this material out of this material, you get all of those materials in the list.
yeah.
Okay. So it's not only the aggregate report, it's a little bit
Yes.
after that as well. Okay. And then do you pull additional metadata about, say, your critical reagent that's needed to be seen in your study report?
Yes.
That's in addition to the aggregate report?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
I think we're going to update the inventory report to, we have to go over them with medical writing, but yes, the lot number, prep date, expiration date, yeah, that has to all go in the BioA report. But yeah, I think we might need to add more, but yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.